Good evening, or good evening. Good morning,
That means
commissioners.
you've had a long day
Yeah.
already. Dang.
It's that season. Yes, it is. We have a little bit of a anomaly in our meeting today. Your chair and your vice chair are absent, excused absences, and we do have a quorum. Clyde is online. We're expecting Ms. Whitstruck momentarily. There is no action planned at today's meeting other than minutes, which we can defer to a following meeting. And so I would ask, I guess, quick question, is one of you willing to take on a presiding officer role? And if not, I'm willing to facilitate the meeting from here. I would have no role in anything other than helping to move the discussion along. If
I'm
one of you wants to do it, I'm willing to do that.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay? If that's all right with you guys? We'll by acclamation or consensus, Logan, you can preside over the meeting.
Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. The public, everybody online. Today is Thursday, February 26th. It is 9:01 a.m. My name is Logan Camporiali. This is the Spokane County Planning Commission, and we will start by introducing ourselves. I'll start to my left here.
Lonnie Edwards.
Wayne Brokaw.
And then is anybody online?
Let's go on.
And then Clyde's online. The public may participate in person or remotely by utilizing our web link and telephone conference links. It's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to speak if you're on the phone. Individuals are limited to 1 3-minute comment period for any item. We'll keep time. Please keep your comments specific to the current agenda item, and the chat feature is not supported. Our first order of business is our open
Mr. Chair,
forum.
hey,
Sir.
Go ahead. You're right on spot.
Our first order of business is open forum, which is when members of the public may comment on an item that's not on the current agenda. Reminder, the item today on the agenda is the comprehensive plan element on the natural environment. So if you have comments other than that, now's the time for them. And it looks like we have a couple of yellow slips.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have two. They're both related to the comprehensive plan, but given where we are, I think you'd be willing to take them for open forum. First is Brian.
Sounds good. Brian, go right ahead.
Is this separate from what you were going to do later? No. You want to wait? Okay. Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Sweet. Sounds good. Yeah, so you have 3 minutes. We're pretty flexible about that though.
Ending with a good time. Wow.
Sounds good. Yeah, take it away. Introduce yourself, please, first for the record.
Greetings, planning commissioners. My name is Brian Meggie. I'm a Spokane resident, local conservationist, and I am also the farm program manager for the environmental certification nonprofit called Salmon Safe. For 30 years, our organization's worked up and down the West Coast, working voluntarily and collaboratively to go to incentivize landowners to go above and beyond baseline regulatory requirements of land stewardship. We've developed a science-based framework that we then certify that farms and other landowners are using best management practices for watershed health. So what is cold, clean, and abundant water and habitat? And I am on the Natural and Rural Lands Technical Advisory Committee for the comp plan, both wearing my hat as a Salmon Safe Farm Program Manager as well as a local advocate. And I just wanted to provide to you folks a little bit of clarity on our program. Oftentimes when people hear our organization for the first time, they go, what is that? What are they doing? And so it's a little bit nuanced. So as we are focused on third-party certification that evaluates farms and other landowners against water quality, stewardship practices, habitat management, erosion control, pesticide risk reduction, and biodiversity. And really, we were developed to incentivize these practices to go above and beyond compliance. And I think this is key. Salmon Safe does not replace, modify, or supersede any federal or state or local environmental regulations. Compliance with all applicable laws, including Washington's Water Pollution Control Act, the Growth Management Act, and critical area ordinances, shoreline regulations and wetland standards for ecology. It's all a prerequisite to our program. And we have in this current draft, Salmon Safe, our organizations is referenced in the chapter, the natural land or natural environment chapter, chapter 10. We would not serve as an alternative compliance pathway. I think this is key for you guys to know. Rather, it would act as a voluntary guidance and incentive-based conservation tool that encourages agricultural producers to implement additional stewardship measures. In short, we're not a regulatory substitute, voluntary conservation overlay. We partner with other statewide entities like conservation districts, watershed councils, et cetera, across 5 Western states. And yeah, that's a brief overview of our program. I'm happy to submit this in written comment as well as field any further follow-up questions on our purview. But I just wanted to put it on the radar that is something that we're doing. We also do work in the urban environment as well. For the past 20 years, we do a very similar approach with urban developments. So both consulting, bringing a team of independent consultants, environmental consultants on projects like new fire station campuses, new college campuses. We've been working with Gonzaga University as of this spring. They're officially certified in our program. And then county and municipality level as well. So we do really try to attack all non-point source pollution impacts, both urban and ag, and trying to bring everyone together over clean and cold and abundant water. So I appreciate the commission's time and careful consideration for this issue, and looking forward to further discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do any commissioners have any questions? No, you're good. It doesn't sound like anybody has any questions, but we would appreciate if you want to provide your testimony in writing, just so we can have another read at it and for the benefit of those who weren't here. Do we have another slip?
We do, Mr. Chairman. Julia McHugh.
Good morning, Julia. You know the drill.
I know the drill.
Have
Good
the
morning
floor.
to all of you planning commissioners. I first need to ask your indulgence. I have sent ahead of time on Monday emails to you all through Rona, and also a second email that I'd promised with a follow-up document, which I've provided. So I've done my homework. I am Julia McHugh. I live on the West Plains. As you know, I live on a contaminated well like hundreds of others, but I'm here because I also have a deep concern and hope for this county as it formulates another 20-year comprehensive plan. In my emails, there are 4 items, and that's why I need a little extra time. I will speak as quickly as I can, but please indulge me for this. It's a perfect segue to Mr. McGee's discussion of Salmon Safe, in that we're looking to preserve an environment while the county grows, while every place grows. First, I'm asking for the county, once again, the Planning Commission, to look carefully at the reuse of vacant office, commercial, and industrial space. We know this community and hundreds of others have significant amounts of vacant space that are really turning into ghost towns and not generating much revenue for the municipalities. So there, pardon?
I think it's somebody on Zoom that maybe needs to be muted, but you go
okay.
ahead.
I thought it was you all. So this is one of the documents I sent you. A follow-up document on Tuesday was the Public Development Authority revenue sharing agreement between the city and the city of Spokane, the county of Spokane. This has to do with the S3R3 solutions and their development of the West Plains. So you have that as simply a template and an example that revenue sharing is possible, that the city and the county do in fact come together when push and shove are no longer working and we need to collaborate and cooperate. So I want you to please read that. I've delivered it. I've done my homework. I was challenged by your current chairman a few meetings ago, and so I've met your requirement. The second item is rethinking basically vacant land of all sizes. Vacant land is something, it has been termed, it has been defined by realtors as the highest and best use is develop. Municipalities look at it as rooftops and revenues, when in fact vacant land is something that a lot of us are not really trained to see, and I'll get into that in detail. The third item here is Spokane County has adopted a public benefit ranking system, the PBRS tool, that is applied to ag land and open space. And both the county and State Department of Revenue have details, which I've provided in my email, that how one can negotiate through that. And then the fourth item is, and thank you, Scott Chesney and Ben Bradabo, your water resources manager, for yesterday's detailed discussion about the update of the now 30-year-old aquifer susceptibility map, which has just been basically dragged through history and attached to the current critical areas ordinance, which is also in the process of being updated, as Mr. Chesney has assured me. So that map has been delivered to you, in addition to this, which is a recent update of considerable data sources that show what's happening on the West Plains. So I'm here representing my West Plains, but I'm also saying, look at this countywide. So back to item 1, reuse of vacant office, commercial, and industrial space. There is a massive savings in public tax money because there are existing utilities.
I
Yes,
have
sir.
a question on that.
Yes, sir.
So are you talking about all vacant places or just stuff that the county and the city own?
I'm talking about
Because
vacant.
how do you make other people that own those private buildings or whatnot? What if they're not getting the rent that they need to get? How do you see this working?
Well, I picture this as voluntary, up to the property owner, up to their willingness to invest in what we're sadly terming affordable housing. But I do see ghost shopping malls. I've given you examples of ghost shopping malls. You have a link for the Providence, Rhode Island is reusing ghost shopping malls for very small efficiency apartments. So there's examples. They also, Providence, Rhode Island is reusing prison for both housing and rehab. If you've been out in Eastern State Hospital campus, there's an entirely empty juvenile detention facility out there. There's all kinds of opportunities to get creative and say, well, how can we reuse this? Or do we let it sit empty? Do we let the pipes burst? Can we feasibly house people, which is needed, but is voluntary? This is not something to be plunged down anybody's throat. Not at all. So it's just, let's get creative and let's look, okay, what is there? There are roads, there is water, there's sewer, there's electricity, there in cases there's Wi-Fi, there is mass transportation in many cases, there are shopping and services. All of the goodies that are needed to house people exist where we have these massive numbers of empty spaces. They're really ghost towns. I keep thinking about the Sears building out at the Spokane Valley Mall. But
There would be a major cost to be able
Of
to
course there
retrofit
would.
all of
But-
that stuff.
but there's-
because I own,
If I could,
Yeah.
this is not necessarily the time for debate. This is not an agenda item that has been noticed. It is an open public forum for citizens to give us their opinion. We will record these as we do, and we will bring them into for further discussion.
And I'd be more than happy to discuss this with you over coffee or some other meeting. But the fact is, we have lots of vacant space, online shopping, home work. I don't think these spaces are ever going to refill. So do you want to tear them down or you want to think about reusing them? When you redevelop a property, the property owners benefit from the increased value. The taxpayers benefit by not stretching roads and sewer and water and et cetera. So enough on that. You've heard me before. Number 2 is vacant lands of all sizes. Okay, my background's in land reclamation and landscape architecture. And I would say that I can find my page, and I thank you for your indulgence.
Yeah, we're about 4.5 minutes. I'm going to give you about 2 more minutes. So
Okay,
get
so
on.
vacant land on page 3, I think, of the email I sent you. Vacant land provides environmental services. You don't want to hear this because this isn't a cut, burn, and pave proposition. These are ag fields for grazing and food production. We've got groundwater recharge and infiltration. We've got urban and rural stormwater infiltration and reduction in flooding. We've got carbon capture, temperature reduction, and air filtration. Wetlands are biodiverse and reduce wildfire risk. I'll stop there. Rethink. Vacant is a really poor term for land. Number 3, earnest application of Spokane County's public benefits ranking system. You have it on the books. So does the Department of Revenue, RCW 8434. There are powerful incentives to provide private landowners to preserve important natural resources, offering direct property tax relief for retaining natural features in their undeveloped condition. I encourage you to please look at that. There are key features of that included in your email. And then we've got the state revenue has eligibility details, and I've provided those links in your email. And then 4th is the update of the aquifer susceptibility map and critical areas ordinance. And if you compare the map I provided in my email and the recent aquifer susceptibility out on the West Plains, you will see that it is mischaracterized on this 30-year-old map. And Scott has assured me that the planning department and the consultants are going to look carefully at this new data on contamination. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Is there anybody else, Scott, that you know of?
No.
Is there anybody else in the public that would like to speak? Now is the time. Anybody online who would like to speak? Great. Our next order of business is a workshop, comprehensive plan element on the natural environment. Scott, are you going to be presenting to us? Sweet. Thanks. Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we are here, particularly, perhaps coincidentally, but to talk about natural environment as one of the elements as we're working our way through the chapters. Poignant subject in view of Ms. McHugh's testimony that vacant lands are not necessarily unused lands. They're used for other things. So next slide, please. Oh, go. There, right. What we're going to go through is a series of issues related to our natural environment element. We're updating goals and policies through that area. Some of these are obvious, environmentally sensitive areas, tree conservation, shorelines, next critical areas. And I've got a couple comments as we move forward into this. And specifically related to our critical areas ordinance. It is overdue. No question about that. It was last done in a major review in 2018. Some of the elements within that shoreline master program have been updated more recently, but the CAO is getting a little long in the tooth. In working with our consulting team, we have been informed that Ecology has finished its review of their work. They have it back in their hands, and they expect to deliver their draft CAO to us tomorrow. Then we will begin an internal review on that from the staff perspective, and looking at that with the intention that, and Rona is going to be asking you for availability. We're going to be proposing a special meeting of the Planning Commission on April 2nd or April 9th to focus on the CAO as itself. And it's a parallel element to the comprehensive plan, but it's important in that it informs so much of what's going on, including what we're talking about today. And so now that we've got that nearly in hand, we want to bring that to your attention and the public's attention as soon as it's ready to go. And so regardless of which of those dates is best available for all of you, we will make sure that we have it posted at least a week ahead of time for public review and comment, and we would expect a robust discussion of that as we move forward. So we're very, very happy that we're getting to that benchmark in our workload. That said, moving on into today's details. There was a technical advisory committee established in 24. Generally, they met monthly, more or less. And so it's been a good track record of public participation. You can see some of the organizations that sat on this technical advisory committee to provide input and feedback to staff, as well as provide the drafts that you saw in your packets. Both the red line chapter and the clear chapter were provided ahead of time and posted online. They are obviously far more extensive than we're going to go through in detail here today, but the combination of some of the highlights that Tate is going to give you in a minute, and that document itself will give you a sense of how important we believe this function is for the county comprehensive plan. And I'll restate that you've heard that from me now several times. We've spent an enormous amount of time on our urban development, which is what we have to do. That's where we're growing. That's where most of our development takes place. But we want to make sure that we're talking to our folks in the rural areas, our farmers, the ranchers, those who are hobby farmers, the Green Bluff Growers Association. All of that is a critical part of Spokane County's environmental, ecological basis. And too often in our comprehensive plan, it's given perhaps a minor role or maybe not quite to the point of being just waiting for development, because there are protections. But we're working very actively to strengthen those ag and rural roles in this comprehensive plan. And today's opportunity to go through that, we'll share that with you. So general timeline so far. The goal and policy audit is complete. The TAC has drafted its revisions. We are here before you today to review those and take your comments and feedback, as well as that from the public. And as always, especially to those listening online, comments do not have to be in today. You can submit them anytime through our website or through our email, which is planninghelp@SpokaneCounty.org. The critical area ordinance BAS review was done. We shared that with you a while back. Now the in progress part of that is still true. And like we said, just in terms of the last day or so, we believe we'll be seeing that draft tomorrow. And these are all headed for adoption in December. So with this, the summary of these revisions and then into the goals and policies, I'm going to ask Tate Andre, who has shepherded this, managed this project, to come up and lead you through the rest of the discussion.
Good morning, Planning Commission. Thank you for your time. As you know, my name's Tate. I and my colleague Joshua Warwick are the ones leading the Technical Advisory Committee. We're working on this element, but also the rural and the natural resource element. You've seen the natural resource element in the past, and the rural one will be coming soon. TAC's put a lot of effort into this, but I want to say a few caveats. The first one being that the TAC did include a letter of recommendation endorsing the revisions up to this point, but there have been additions made by Cascadia, our climate consultant, since that letter was drafted. So specifically, those goals and policies were not vetted through the TAC in an official capacity. They did receive them through email and kind of gave some notes on them, but I wanted to make that clear to make sure there wasn't any conflicts between the letter and what I'm presenting today. They will be reviewed post this meeting, along with any feedback you have included. So we will plan to adjust accordingly. None of the Cascadia policies contradict with anything else that was written, and I'm pretty sure I could say the TAC would support it, but I can't say for certain right now. In the presentation, I do highlight which goals and policies were created by Cascadia so that everybody knows what policies are what.
Are they the ones that are purple in the red line version, or like blue or whatever?
I do not know.
Okay,
I don't
no
have
worries.
the version in front of me. But you'll see new goals and policies up here. You'll see it says Cascadia, and it all connects to the relevant sections. So the other caveat I want to discuss, which Brian was here earlier to talk about, is that we mentioned a couple independent certifications, that being the Salmon Safe program, but also LEED, which is a green building certification used around nationally, but I know it's used in the state as well. If you're familiar with the Catalyst building built on Sprague, that's where I went to school. That's a LEED certified building. Independent certifications are obviously voluntary, but they can be incentivized through various means, such as reduced permitting fees, increased FAR, expedited permitting, things like that. But the reason that Brian came to today to speak on Salmon Safe is because we've gotten comments from Ecology, who's part of the TAC, late comments, I would say, with some concerns about the Salmon Safe program. I don't want to speak either in support or against the program at this point. My understanding was that it was an independent certification. It didn't contradict with any state requirements, like Brian said, but there is discussion to be had within the TAC to make sure we don't support anything that doesn't align with the state or county values. But in my understanding up to this point is that it was a program that just supported watershed efforts and other programs. So do you have a question though? Okay, just making sure. So with that, I will get into the goals and policies. This is just a summary of everything that's changed, making sure everything is aligned with best available science, making sure everything's clear and concise and there's no redundancies. We added a lot more language around water aquifers and wildlife corridors. And we also added a new section on noise and light pollution, which I will go over today. So starting off with the overall critical area goals section, these are goals that apply to the entire chapter. We talk about watershed planning. Watershed plans are target strategies for improving water quality, supply, and ecosystem function. And the intent here is to provide a set of actions to restore sustainable populations to salmon. We also mentioned incentive programs. Incentive programs aren't explicitly said here, but they can be utilizing financial assistance, grants, and technical support for habitat restoration. Just to clarify again, this is a place we mentioned the independent certification, specifically Salmon Safe and LEED, and you'll see that throughout the policies as well. Continuing on from that, here we just mentioned land use strategies that promote environmental, social, economic, and cultural benefits, and making sure establish appropriate uses of development that align with environmental principles. Cascadia here added a goal for no net loss of critical area function. No net loss is either mitigation or preservation of critical areas, and that is all implemented through our critical areas ordinance. Is there any questions on the general goals section?
Thank you. I appreciate the additions and I hope that the TAC is okay with them. But is this, and I'm sure the consistency with SMP has been conducted as well, because no net loss is a requirement in a lot of riparian areas for SMPs. So I just want to make sure that that's in alignment and strong enough to keep them consistent. Now, I understand that there may be conflicts between them, but I think the Shoreline Master Program is kind of a not sure if it's over the top of GM comprehensive plans, but it is important to keep that in mind. It's like, yeah, that is a requirement. So just trying to make sure that that's in place.
Definitely. Yeah. And there's a policy here touched on in regards to buffers. From my understanding, nothing in here contradicts with anything in the shoreline. But yeah, later on, there's possibly policy implications that may suggest looking at our buffers to meet certain requirements, and I'll discuss that later. But up to this point, we are ensuring that everything is aligned.
Mr. Chairman, if I could for just a second, the planning operates on a three-legged stool: the comprehensive plan, the critical areas ordinance, and the shoreline master program. So they're separate issues, they're separate parts of the WAC and the RCWs. Our job over the next few months is to try to integrate both the intent and the policy of those so they are all consistent and working in concert. So your comments are spot on and they're very good. One point of today's presentation, like all of these, is these are not staff recommendations today. These are findings from the TAC. These are findings from our consultants. They are here for discussion. Nothing here is being proposed that is chiseled in stone. Everything is here for your discussion, deliberation, and to hear from the public and others. So I want you to keep in the sense that this is an open mind. We're not saying here, do you like this? Yes or no?
So moving on to the wetland section, just so you know, wetlands are areas where water covers soil. And in general, that's a very simple way to put it, but this includes swamps, marshes, bogs, and similar areas. And these have lots of environmental benefits, such as reducing flooding, improving water quality, and providing critical habitat for biodiversity. The policy here relates to wetland protection in perpetuity. So this means monitoring and stewardship implementation. Stewardship is part of a function of the voluntary stewardship program, which is led in, I think, the Spokane County Conservation District. And there are a non-regulatory group it's a non-regulatory approach to meeting the goals of the GMA by protecting critical areas in agricultural lands. Specifically, the implications of this is that there would be a requirement for applicants and developers to finance maintenance and monitoring until a mitigation plan or conditions for a wetland are approved and completed.
Just one question. So are seasonal wetlands included?
I believe so, but I don't have a determined answer on that.
Okay, because there are seasonal wetlands.
Mr. Chairman, we will be watching online too. And just a reminder for those online, raise your hand at any time. This is not a formal public hearing. You can comment on any topic that piques your interest.
Next policies on here, you'll see throughout these that, is there a hand raised? Oh, okay.
Yes, this is Clyde Hosey. Thank you for that report. I was trying to pick up on the last comment you made about maintaining these regulations and ponding or conditions that were assigned to a property. Are you recommending that the period of time would be forever then to maintain it at the government expense or at the proponent who is advocating it?
First, I want to say we're not recommending anything at this point, but I think the implication would be is that up until the mitigation plan conditions are met, and then it would be protected in perpetuity, either through the government or there are stewardship programs. I think that is a function of BSP. They also work. There's community organizations and nonprofits that I think pursue stewardship of these properties, but exactly, after the private development, I don't have a for certain answer.
Thank you.
You'll see throughout the goals and policies, we mentioned watershed plans a lot, and it's just making sure everything in here supports the watershed plans. But in relation to the policy here, this is just to ensure alignment with currently adopted watershed plans in the region. We also have a policy from Cascadia, which is to identify opportunities to restore corridors between wetlands. And this would involve partnerships with community organizations and nonprofits. Part of the work we are doing is updating our wildlife corridor mapping. And so, for example, that would be part of the work we do that would aid identification and restoration efforts, but it's really pursuing partnerships with environmental groups. That was all on the wetlands section. Well, I'm sorry, give me 1 second. think I might accidentally click through the sides. One more wetlands. Oh, that's okay. Let me get my gears in check. First policy here is maintenance or improvement of vegetation and wildlife habitat conservation areas and corridors. And this just supports mitigation and restoration efforts in the critical areas ordinance. Again, we mentioned the independent certifications here. I won't go over, go over that again. And then Cascadia mentions pursuing community partnerships to advance agricultural and forestry management practices using best available science. And this ensures community engagement concurrent with VAS research. As an example, I would say the TAC work that we've done accomplishes that. That's working directly with community groups that are in the agriculture industry and forestry industry, and making sure that everything aligns with established best available science. And that was the last wetland section. Is there any question on regarding wetlands? Water real quick. So the next section here is on aquifer recharge and groundwater. Obviously, this is a very important section. All the water in Spokane County comes from the aquifers and groundwater in the region, and so it gets lots of attention. The first thing we discuss here is xeriscaping and native vegetation. The city has a program called Spokanescape, which you might be familiar with, in which they promote drought resistance and native plants for their water and wildlife benefits. For us, if we wanted to pursue some of this, it is just encouraging. It could range from information distribution on the benefits of such landscaping, or we could incentivize its usage in development or require it outright in landscaping standards. But as it's written right now, it considers softer language. Next, we mentioned voluntary stewardship again and other independent certifications as it relates to ag land, industrial, and commercial uses. I will note there's quite a bit of new policies for the aquifer section, so I'll try and get through them. Here we discuss regional coordination. Water doesn't begin and end at state and regional lines, so it's important here that we support coordination between everyone to support our water resources. Currently, there are 6 watershed resource inventory areas in Spokane County, but they obviously connect to other ones in Idaho and elsewhere, and overlap in other states. We also discuss watershed planning again here with the intent to protect groundwater quality and quantity, which is this would be a policy enacting one of the new goals. This is where we talk about permit exempt wells. We have quite a bit of those throughout the rural areas, and it's become a hot topic talked about between us and the Public Works Department for water resources. Currently, Ecology has a groundwater permit exemption, which allows for 4 small uses of groundwater based on if it's domestic, industrial, irrigation, or stock water uses. But here the policies consider adequate water quantities and summer flows through water conserving landscaping, water use meeting, and stewardship. And encouragement of this could mean education, offering rebates for meter installations, and also maybe even creating access to consumption data so that people can independently see how much water they're using and make choices based off that information.
Tate, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Interestingly, for this, there's a couple of things happening that are not really related. One is, as we've talked about a couple of years ago, our water resources team, Amy, leading this, is updating the coordinated water system plan that has not been touched since 1999. She has a draft of that that's coming together. What that is doing at the first stage is reinforcing where all of the water districts exist and their boundaries, that their boundaries are accurate, because what we found is they've changed over the years. Since the dissolution of the Boundary Review Board, there has not been an organization that has monitored those boundaries. And so we're bringing that, frankly, under the Planning Commission's umbrella to wrap it into planning overall. And so even though these water districts cover a large amount of our rural areas, within those districts are enormous amounts of permit exempt wells. So there's a huge overlap between water districts and wells in some of their areas. And so that's something that's going forward that I think is going to be really interesting. Secondly, the water metering idea is not as controversial if you're hooked up to a municipal system of some kind, but there's a bill in the legislature right now, House Bill 1345, that you will be hearing about. It's still moving and likely will pass. That is the ADU bill of the day, the ADU bill du jour. And one of those things that allows for additional ADUs in our rural areas, but it demands that those ADUs and their primary use are metered. And that's a very different thing than anybody's seen before. And so the idea of water use at the legislature is taking on a new role. And we, along with WASAC, other planners, have pointed out the difficulty of trying to install a water metering system in an area that's never used it before. And the point is, to what purpose? So we're dealing with that, but that's something that's coming down the road that we may have to consider.
What's the bill number again?
1345.
Thank you.
Is there, oh, I'm sorry. Did I?
And I
No, go ahead.
didn't mean to get you off track. It just, there's some coincidental things that are happening along with Tate's work and Ashley's work.
Melissa?
Yeah, I personally think it's a good idea to keep track of water usage, because it's not a infinite resource. Many people think it is, but it is not, as we saw this last summer. I saw in the paper that there are 2 data centers being contemplated, or at least preliminary questions being asked for Spokane County. And those are incredibly water consumptive as well as energy consumptive. And I strongly suggest that they be metered or figure out their own way to supply their own water and it not be ours.
And not to keep us off track, but to address that very quickly. There is another bill in the legislature that is providing for the eastern Washington counties the same tax benefit that was granted to western Washington counties, specifically for data centers, that exempts them from paying sales tax. And the eastern side was saying, well, we're operating under an unfair system here. If you don't have to pay sales tax on this side of the state, but you have to pay sales tax over here, the use simply won't happen. And so that is working its way through the legislature. The other
Ormsby's prime sponsor.
and the other and there is only one proposed, and I would say proposed with a very small, italicized proposed. We have been in discussions with a potential developer. That data center would use reclaimed water from existing industrial uses on the West Plains and pipe all of that separately and not tap into groundwater or potable water in any way. So there are some creative aspects to this, of being able to take gray water, use it for another purpose, and in that purpose, it actually gets cleaned and then put back into like a groundwater recharge system of some kind. So there are some solutions. Don't want to get into data centers. We'll have that conversation as we go down the path there. But it does, as you pointed out, it does involve water, and where it comes from is critical. And everything Tate's talking about, aquifer recharge. We've learned so much about West Plains and the other aquifers that those of us that started our lives across the river were not aware of, because we didn't have to do. But here, as Ms. McHugh mentioned, we'll be updating our maps. We'll be putting that information out there. So our successors and builders and conservation folks will be able to have an accurate portrayal of what aquifer protection looks like, not just for the Spokane Valley, Rathdrum Prairie aquifer. Sorry, Tate.
I'm all good.
Back to 18 here.
These ones I will go through pretty quick, and it's the last policies and aquifers. But essentially it talks about voluntary stewardship to accomplish the items discussed in the previous slides, and Cascadia added a policy on smart water use practices to protect water quality and thus aquatic habitat. So both of these connect to policies we kind of discussed already. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to change the slide. Those are the policies for what I just discussed. Is there any more discussion to be had or questions on aquifers? Cool. So next is fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas. These areas vary, but some examples include areas with endangered species, habitats with species of local importance, water bodies, conservation areas, and wildlife corridors. Watershed planning, as talked about here, is to support fish and wildlife habitat connectivity, riparian forests, and in-stream flows. And that second policy is more of a values policy to recognize the importance of wildlife species to the tribes. And this supports other critical area protection and water conservation efforts.
This is maybe not a new question, but how come goal 23 doesn't have any associated policies?
Goal 23. I'm so sorry. I don't have, oh wait, yes, I do. Let me
It just feels like it's out of the usual sort of flow of goal and then policies, and maybe it's just
Oh, you're
got
right.
formatted weird or something. I don't know.
this might be,
It's not one that we're talking about. It's like it's just the one before 24. It's 23. It's in the redlined version. But it
Yeah.
doesn't have any associated policies with the goal, and I don't know if that's oversight or if it just got weird or something.
it might be, you're right, because it goes 23, 24, and then policies to 24, and then straight to,
Mr.
I
Chairman,
think what's happened is
Mr.
is
Chairman,
structure.
those are classified. We
Yeah.
can't tell you.
Those ones are top secret. The identity fish and wildlife habitat
Yeah.
conservation areas, top
I-
secret. I mean, it's true. You want to keep your fishing spots pretty secret, you know? You
I-
don't share that information.
It's definitely a formatting issue. I apologize.
No worries.
I think both of those goals are in the same section, and the policies discuss like 24 policies 24.1 through 9, I think relate to both of those goals. A lot of the times we have 23A, 23B, but I'll have to confirm that and make sure it's formatted correctly. I apologize.
No worries. I see it's kind of the same with 25, 26.
Yeah,
But maybe
that's-
that was just like the way. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
That's
Thank you.
why I noticed that and why I think it's a formatting thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me get back to what it was. Guys, pause. Moving on, here we talk about open space and wildlife corridors, and it's essentially saying, do what the state does. We do identify wildlife corridors. It's something we already do. But this is just mentioning the specific Washington Administrative Code to make sure that we keep establishing those open space corridors between and within urban growth areas. The other policies here just relate to collaboration, so ensuring collaboration with community organizations, agencies, state agencies, and other jurisdictions for habitat corridor protection and restoration. For example, I know the city's reached out to us for our wildlife corridor mapping. We're still technically updating it. We have it part of the draft with the CAO, but I think regionally people look to us for, overall wildlife corridors.
Weird question. I won't make it long. Is there any consideration or thought given to wildlife corridor bridges for mitigation?
The closest thing I can think about and how that's talked about is working with WashDOT and kind of working with them to establish areas where those bridges would work best. Are you talking about like where there's the green belt over the top?
Yeah, the safe crossing for wildlife. I think they
Yeah.
just put one on Snoqualmie a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they love to show it in their
Yeah,
materials.
there's
Yeah.
other states that have done it. so.
Yeah, they're super cool projects. I don't know of anything in the county that's being pursued, but policies support, I think, that sort of thing and working with them. I think those are a lot of money, which is obviously a barrier, but they're very cool.
It's very urban, but there's WashDOT is planning a land bridge over 90 at Liberty Park. So it'll be an urban wildlife corridor for sure, but it will be certainly the easiest way over the top of 90 for a long way. But
Yeah, and I think with how the policies are written and with new ones, we would support that, but I don't know of any specific actual projects besides, I guess, what Logan was mentioning.
kills the wildlife and it kills people sometimes when you crash into one. and
I've seen way too many deer get hit driving in on I-90. It's kind of
pretty
crazy.
scary.
Yeah. Here we just have additional wildlife connectivity and corridor policies. So identifying, mapping, and protecting through our land use regulations. And this actually means treating wildlife corridors as a critical area when analyzing land use and development decisions, as well as using via voluntary stewardship programs, conservation easements, and clustering tools. We currently do conservation easements and clustering tools. But for example, with the new wildlife corridor mapping, we might see implementing zones change. It's currently the rural conservation zone is what implements it. And so if those areas actually change, we might see new areas designated with that conservation zone or de-designated depending on it. Any questions on fish and wildlife? I'll move on. Okay. Next section is on tree conservation. And so this section recognizes the importance of trees in the region and the economic, social, and environmental benefits they bring. This was a section already existing in our comp plan, but we expanded on it a bit. So Cascadia added a new goal about increasing tree canopy coverage. Tree canopy provides a lot of environmental, health, and economic benefits through cooling, cleaning air, and managing stormwater, and this reduces the urban heat island effect that we often see in cities. Oh, question. Yep.
We have a question online. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me all right? This is
We
my
can.
name's Barry Brooks. Yeah, hi, I've been serving on the Technical Advisory Committee, and I wanted to respond to or add a comment to the idea of the wildlife bridges. We've gotten on that committee, people from Fish and Wildlife have been involved as well, and you know what that agency did a whole new connectivity statewide priority study, which has actually been informing the kind of corridor mapping here in the county. But then another part of that was looking at wildlife transportation conflicts, and that statewide project came up with a new rating scheme for finding priority areas. And even though locally we know that there are some high priority areas, and in fact, previous WashDOT independent work, for example, highlighted, say, the Latah Valley at 195. But there's only like a limited number of these high priority ones that probably WashDOT would ever build a bridge for. But that's not to say that we couldn't do things. Some of us have had a chance to talk with Fish and Wildlife, and they have ideas for how to do things less expensively. And recently they said, basically a real good opportunity is when all the bridges that need repair are actually repaired. During that process, you can make sure that there's good, at least underpasses for fish and wildlife. So I just wanted, and I think also they would help, they've said they would help technically advise on things like that. So yeah, to me, it's also a big concern, and I just thought people might be interested in hearing this point. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for your comment. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your service on the Technical Advisory Committee.
Any other online? Okay. Yeah, back to tree canopy coverage. Spokane has the Spokanopy project that you might be familiar with. It's the Urban Land Council's Urban Forest Program. And what they do is plant trees for free in low-income neighborhoods to increase urban tree canopy coverage. So for us, this would just say we could increase tree canopy through a similar program if we would like to, either through that sort of program or having tree conservation regulations or retention and things like that. But the second policy there is long, but it's just ensuring tree conservation practices comply with bird protections regarding removal and clearing of retention of trees when feasible. And just to build off of those ones, Cascadia added a policy to actually establish tree canopy targets. they aren't stated what those targets would be, but if we wanted to pursue tree canopy, it'd be good to set an actual target. Canopy goals typically aim for 30 to 40% in urban areas, but it depends on the climate and what we wanted to pursue. I think the city itself has a 20% on average, but it does vary based on the area they're in. I think South Hill has quite a bit more than areas up north. So for us, it would be, if we wanted to pursue this, then we could actually work on mapping tree canopy coverage and actually establish a goal for what we would like to see in urban areas. Additionally, we connect tree conservation to climate resiliency through forest management for drought, wildfire, and air quality, and preserving trees that provide significant functions for stormwater habitat, slope stability, and shade.
Mr. Chairman, in a point of putting this in context.
Yep.
Currently in, for example, LDR, MDR standards for development in our urban growth areas, the county does not have a street tree requirement nor a sidewalk requirement. Those are more urban functions that come in with the city. And so this would affect a change in that for county policy. We heard early on from some developers that were concerned about this because it hadn't factored it into their building portfolio or their pro forma. And we're sensitive to that. On the other hand, the climate and resiliency element and things that are now being pushed toward us from the state level are suggesting that rather than treat those things individually, if we wrap them into other things, we can perhaps add a quality of life aspect to some of our development, not just have trees protected by themselves. So there's context in where this ultimately may be successful, but it will be a change for development in the county.
With those sidewalk trees and stuff, which I know about those for the tree developers and stuff, put those in. When they're next to the street, who's going to be responsible for maintaining them?
I don't know. And there's no, like I said, these are not recommendations. These are findings that came from the TAC and from the outside, and they're driven by some of the things that are mandated to us by the state. And I didn't mean to include sidewalks in this conversation. It's just those are the more typical elements that you find in a city development requirement. Separated sidewalks, so there's a boulevard or a terrace in between, and then street trees in the terrace. Typically, the street trees are maintained by the property owner.
I just bring that up sometimes on some streets around town when you're trying to pull out somewhere, you can't see not taken care of. That's why
Our code enforcement staff is well aware of that in many places around Spokane County. But I just wanted to put this in a context of not by itself, but you'll start to see some of these specific recommendations from the chapters filtering their way into the neighborhood residential, neighborhood business zoning ideas that we've been talking about before.
Back to these last three in 27, or did we already do these three?
I covered these.
Okay,
ones,
cool.
If we're good to move on.
Yeah, I think we're on to
next one's noise and light pollution.
26.
I only included new goals and policies, so there might be some sections that have strike throughs within them, but nothing new quite added to them. So if you see a section skipped over, that's why. But this is the last thing I'll talk about. It's the new section on noise and light pollution. These are increasingly recognized as environmental stressors that affect both human health and the health of wildlife through different pathways. Right now, noise is discussed in Title VI of our code, the police and safety, but not as it relates to functions, not as it relates to environmental functions and wildlife. And illumination is briefly discussed in our zoning code in chapter 14.826. It's very, very brief. And so the idea is that the goals and policies here would expand on those two areas with the focus on impacts to the natural environment. I'll note that this isn't a new concept. There are multiple states in the U.S. that have light pollution laws, including Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, Texas, and Colorado. So us implementing policies to pursue some of these efforts isn't out of the ordinary. So the first couple new goals consider noise and light pollution in areas of environmental concern, and mitigation could include decibel limits, mitigation measures like noise walls, shielding requirements, or environmental review of light and glare impacts. Currently, noise is managed in three ways. The hearing examiner can put conditions on a development, the noise code, Title VI, and also some uses have hours of operations. The policies here would also encourage transportation planning practices that reduce sensory disturbances, such as buffers, noise reducing pavement, wildlife bridges, and tree canopy, and various degrees of these strategies could be used depending on the location in the county.
There's a good another call out for those wildlife bridges.
Yes, for sure. Here we talk about it as it relates to shoreline buffers. Oh, question, sorry.
I had a
This question
question.
online? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I had a question in regards to some of these policies and the goals and so forth, which I do understand quite extensively, but I was just kind of curious, do you have any recommendation of enforcements with recommendation on that to enforce these?
Yeah, I know there's a lot to talk about with code enforcement.
Clyde, at the moment, there is no corresponding discussion on enforcement, but I would remind the commissioners, yourself, and the audience, the county is recharacterizing its code compliance system to allow for a better use of a civil system rather than simply the criminal system. And by that, the civil system allows for citations for violations rather than simply a stipulation of compliance. And so there's an evolution of how the county will be handling code compliance in these areas that I think will be fairly useful in some ways, but it will be also challenging for land use, because land use things are not something that you can generally find a violation and fix overnight. And so
Right.
there will be a challenge in how that's doing that. That said, one of the things that's important in this section that Tate's talking about is how noise and light affects our environment. Most of the complaints we get from noise and light are nuisance complaints, and that's why they're in Title VI. They're, one neighbor is making too much noise, one neighbor has a light that shines in my window. Those are things that the county is not going to, we're going to pull those away because that's not a county governmental function. We simply don't have the resources, and the county is unwilling to pay for those resources on a case-by-case basis for those. We want to be able to focus on life safety issues and things that affect our environment. So this is a different approach from light and noise than has been seen before. But no, there's no direct correlation to enforcement. As these go forward, we will certainly be taking that into consideration.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Tate?
Yeah, like I was saying, this is where we consider noise and light as it relates to shoreline buffers. So it's essentially just saying, consider these things when you're establishing them. Our current buffers on shorelines are typically 200 feet, but it depends on the zone and use in the area. So ultimately, this policy would just drive decisions on any possible changes if necessary. I don't know what those changes would look like. This isn't saying you have to do something. It's just promoting the idea of considering those as we look at our shorelines. And that second policy, it's just continued collaboration with various partners to identify wildlife areas, corridors, and scenic landscapes where light pollution could be mitigated. There are other legislations throughout the country called dark skies legislation, and within those they have measures including LED retrofits, curfews on light, using warm colored lighting, and fully sheeted fixtures that reduce light that goes into the air, just as some examples. Just a couple more slides. Yep. Sensory, this talks about sensory impact reduction for specifically industrial and agricultural operations, and promoting lighting strategies that are bird safe and wildlife compatible. As discussed previously, these sensory impact reduction measures would be implemented either through conditional use, noise code, or as part of a specific use if we establish it. And lastly, this just talks about urban design practices that support migratory birds, and this would be implemented throughout the urban design chapter of our zoning code. Again, I don't know what that would look like, but it's just something to consider. And we also talk about road design, such as traffic calming, noise buffers, consideration of corridors and wildlife movement, and other strategies for context-sensitive design. And this would be complementary with our transportation and our climate chapters. So that is all I have for policies. In terms of timeline, we've done our policy audit and TAC review, obviously, which is what you guys saw. We had a public open house on this section earlier this month. And then today's planning commission review. Ultimately, we're going to have the recommendation of the draft plan, I believe, in later this year, October, November, and I think we might get an earlier working draft of all of the chapters discussed with you this summer, I think. But an actual consideration will be happening at the end of the year and ultimately adopted by the board in December. So that is all I have for you. If you have any questions, though, I'm still here. Is there any questions or concerns with the chapter?
Questions or comments for Tate?
I just want to commend you for all your work and the thoroughness of the review and the additions. So job well done. I'm glad this is a draft and we're not at the recommendation stage yet. It's a lot to consider. I mean, a lot of square miles out there and a lot of facets to the natural environment. So yeah, looking forward to the time to sit down more in depth with it myself. But thank you for your review today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Any other comments from commissioners or questions for Tate? A commissioner or someone from the public? Any other commissioners want to say anything? I'll just say I'm not an expert in like this stuff at all. We have to like talk about a lot of things we're not experts in up here, or opine on a lot of things we're not experts on, but this feels very thorough and complete. And that's, you know, when you're not an expert on something, you kind of have to lean on, does it look like the people who knew what they were doing did the hard work? And this looks like the people who knew what they were doing did the hard work. And so I look forward to seeing it revised and coming to the finish line. No, it's a workshop, so we can take comments from the public. If anybody has any, it sounds like there's somebody online who we could go to first. Tanner, you can give us your public comment and just introduce yourself before we get started.
Sure, absolutely. My name's Tanner. I was born and raised in the community of Elk, Washington, which is in the most northern part of Spokane County. My real comment question for this is I've been in contact with Tate and other members of the board and government and community, kind of starting a grassroots growth of trying to get agritourism. I'm aware that the update for agritourism is in a policy update, and as the plan gets reviewed over time, I would love to see something put into, even if it's just a very tight line to walk for a, give me 1 second as I review my notes here. This has to do with the current, rural conservation districts and use. Currently, the rural conservation use, there is very little that private landowners can do to engage with the public as far as agritourism is involved. And I understand, and I'm a conservationist myself when it comes to that. My real request here is to be able to form some sort of path, though it may be a narrow one, to be able to help increase the options that a private landowner would have to go down an agritourism route, whether that be engaging in educational classes with the public to be able to demonstrate the public, hey, these are our conservation lands, and these are how we are using them to be able to benefit that. Conservation to me is not a static, hey, we need to pause on the land and just let the land kind of, it does require an active, proactive approach to continually beautify, regulate, and make sure that those lands are used for the good of everybody, protecting our watersheds, protecting wildlife, fish. All those conservation efforts require actual boots, money, and effort on the ground. By giving private landowners an opportunity to channel some of those funds generated through agritourism, I think we could find a great benefit to the community, including the landowners and education to the public. In closing, I think that this would also be very beneficial because it would still follow all the current regulations. This is not something where we're trying to hop, skip, and jump over any of the other departments, the critical area, any of those rules or regulations that are already in place. I think, working in conjunction with all those, but by giving private landowners the opportunity to use the land and demonstrate that use to the public, you can make the more of the public aware of how we are actively protecting those land areas.
Thank you, Tanner. And go ahead, Scott.
Just to kind of reply to that as more of a preview for all of you. All of you understand that agritourism is something that we have been studying for a couple of years now. There have been requests of the county in 23 and 24. There was the Supreme Court case that threw a wrench in how counties were working on this. We are working with our county planning directors on an agritourism task force, so to speak, or a working group. There was a bill in the legislature this year supporting agritourism that failed to advance. But we will be bringing agritourism back to you for discussion within our economic development element, roughly the end of April 30th. So there's a short-term horizon on having some things to talk about. We fully expect to incorporate agritourism as well as separately, wedding and event centers in our comprehensive plan ideas and recommendations for you in the future.
Thank you, Scott. We spent a good deal of time working on or talking about this in the past couple of years, so that sounds good. Do we have somebody else? Paul, is Paul Crop? Cool, Paul, and then I'll go to you after that. Julia, go ahead, Paul. You got 3 minutes. If you'd introduce yourself first, that'd be great.
Yes, this is Paul Crop. I'm calling in from Moran Prairie in the urban growth area. Tate, could you talk a bit about mapping components of this chapter? I'm would like to be in the position of being able to say when it comes to the final review that the mapping is clear and available. You're looking to the commission for a recommendation in Q4. But how early on are we going to be able to see the mapping, particularly the kind of mapping that you've already alluded to, wildlife corridors and that sort of thing? Talk about how these are going to roll out.
Thanks, Paul. Scott has an answer. Scott, please.
Yeah, just quickly, we've involved our GIS team as an integral part of our planning discussions. They are aware of a lot of this that's coming to them that's different from the maps that have been done before. GIS analysis and mapping has also changed dramatically in the last few years. So we've got more of a chance for illustrative and teaching tools as well as technical mapping that we'll be trying to put together. To Paul's calendar question, this is the challenge. Our goal is to have essentially working draft of this plan and chapters in July. And so that would imply that we'll have at least draft maps to talk about at that time, using July and August to refine those, synthesize them, integrate them among themselves and the other parts of our work at the county. So between July and September is the time to be looking at more of this detailed aspect. And the reason for that is if we're going to stay on our timeline, which brings these to you for public hearing your last meeting in October, first meeting in November, we need to be able to go through our 60-day review with Commerce SRTC no later than the Friday after Labor Day. So that's sort of a hard stop for us. Doesn't mean that it has to be the final and complete document, but it does mean it has to be generally final in terms of substance. So all of this does need to come back into play by pretty much by the 4th of July.
Thanks, Scott. Paul, did you have anything else? You got a couple more minutes if you had anything to follow up on. So not hearing anything, I'm going to move on to the next person. Julia said she had.
Well,
Go ahead, Paul. Go.
I got muted again. I just wanted to point out that the geological hazard map location in the document is incorrect. It's actually not in the right spot. So I think somebody will pick that up. You can see in the draft that it's really under shorelines. And then I also wanted to make a general comment about the rhetoric within the comprehensive plan itself. Planners understand these chapters as elements of the comprehensive plan. So I'm wondering about whether or not you should look for a consistency from the point of view of the reader in the public about whether internally to the text of the comprehensive plan, it should be referring to chapters or elements. I think because you call them chapters, that you're going to have to refer to them as chapters in your text. And I don't even think that a glossary entry that says elements equals chapters is going to solve it. So I really would like you overall to look at that. There is in the text that we looked at today, this usage, element meaning chapter. I just want to leave it at that.
Thank you, Paul. We need people like you. I wouldn't have picked up on that. So that's a good point, and we appreciate it. It sounds like Scott has something.
I was going to do the same thing, Mr. Chairman. Paul, thanks for your editing red pen, as always. We're not looking so much at style right now. We're trying to get the substance in place, but we will be editing this document. And remember, the intent of the document when it's actually done, which will be after adoption, is to turn this into a digital or virtual document that is friendly to the audience, not necessarily just a teaching tool for planners and regulators. So the plan itself is going to have a much more common narrative, Chicago School of Style manual, probably using a consistent voice, like a consistent writer throughout. And then these chapters / elements will be clarified. There'll be chapters probably, but they'll refer to the RCW GMA elements. Those will all be in the appendix. So that will be a technical part of the plan. But as you've noted, we want a plan that a citizen can pick up and understand what the goals are of public policy and development in Spokane County without having to sift through technical language. So your point's well taken, and I look forward to you partnering with us on this in the future.
Thanks, Paul. Julia. Same deal as usual. This time, let's try to keep it to 3 minutes.
Can do. I have 4 bits from the comments I've heard in the discussions. One is in the wetlands section. There was no mention of wetland functioning as wildfire suppression. That's not such a big deal, possibly in the urban area, but it is out where others live, including myself. Also, there is a wildlife bridge that has been broached as a connection between the northwest end of the Palisades neighborhood and Riverside State Park. A lot of horseback riders are interested in this. So that is something that's on the books up in the Friends of Palisades discussion, writings, etc. So that's a bridge that has been discussed. And then finally, data centers. I've done a fair bit of reading on data centers, and their effluent is not clean. You wouldn't want it released into another function of the effluent, and that is aquifer recharge. Reusing and recycling reclaimed water is one great aspect of a sort of a closed system, but then you are interrupting the natural recharge of aquifers. So data centers are finding great opposition in communities that have high electricity rates and also have a paucity of safe drinking water. So I'm sure is a concern for all of us here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for keeping our time. That was great. Anybody else from the public who has a comment on this workshop or a question? Anybody online? Any additional discussion from the commissioners from that public comment? Not hearing any. Staff, do you have anything else on this workshop?
Nothing, Mr.
Sweet.
Chairman.
I guess we'll call this workshop to an end. Our next order of business is minutes. I mean, I'm happy to move forward with them.
Yes,
Let's just do it. We have enough people here. I
We'll
had a
have a
chance
quorum.
to review the minutes. Did anybody else have a chance to review them, or do you need a second to review them? If not, I'd take a motion to accept the minutes. Moved by Lonnie and seconded by Wayne. Without objection, the minutes are approved as written. Next order of business is a staff report. Scott, do you have any additional staff report for us today? And as always, would appreciate any preview of next meeting.
Briefly, yes. The advance agenda is posted. We will make sure you continue to get links or you can look at that. It has not changed a lot. We're moving a few things around now that we have potential of the CAO coming forward. As we mentioned before, we're going to survey all of you for availability on April 2nd and failing that, April 9th. And then a couple of key things. The virtual open house for March is housing. That's going to be a fairly high level approach. We'll be looking at the allocations. We'll be looking at some of the basic policies that we'll be talking about. And then we will be back with you for a work session on housing on April 16th. So we're moving from fairly, I don't say abstract, but fairly specific discussions on elements into now the housing, land use, transportation, economic development parts of our plan work over the next couple of months. And that's going to work our way through our advanced calendar. So coming up will be potentially the special meeting. The next two March meetings right now are cultural resources and potentially our rural areas on the 26th. We're the rural areas, we want to make sure we time that meeting for you in after we have a chance to revisit this with the Farm Bureau, the Cattlemen's Association, and some of the others that we have talked with earlier on in this process to go back and see if what we've incorporated meets their needs and how they may have comments that we can then bring to you when that happens. So those agendas may move around a little bit, but Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Great.
Scott, I have a question.
First, Wayne, it sounds like Wayne's question was, are we scheduled for the 12th? Yep, we're scheduled for the 12th. And
March 12th,
looks like
yes.
2 workshop items currently on the agenda for that day. And then Clyde, did you have a question?
I had a question. When will you be requesting our response on the 2nd or the 9th?
As soon as you can send it to Rona. She'll be sending out an email later today.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Not hearing anything. I will adjourn the meeting at 10:23. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.